Hey guys, I'm Alexis,
I'm Asha.
and we're your hosts.
Every week, we're going to be bringing you a new episode where we interview staff, fellow students, discuss current events, our interests, and life at CSUF.
This is the Honors Podcast. All right, welcome back to another week of the Honors Podcast. As students prepare to return to classes after spring break, we thought this would be the perfect time to visit a topic that many students are dealing with every day: mental health. Today, we'll be speaking to Jacquelyn Gerali and Jessica Leone, two of our wonderful counselors here with our counseling and psychological services.
In today's chaotic world, taking care of your mental health is not only important, but it's a vital component of healthy living. So today's conversation is going to center on students' mental health and how we can take a more active role in properly caring for our mental well-being.
Thank you so much for joining us this week. We are so excited to have you. First, we want to start off by looking at the world we're living in. How do you think COVID-19 has affected students' mental health?
I'll take that question. So as far as how COVID-19 has affected students' mental health, we do have statistics provided by activeminds.org. Overall, what we're seeing amongst college students is we're seeing depression has increased during the pandemic. 60.7% of students reported an increase in depression. As far as anxiety goes, we saw an 89% increase as 89% of college students reported stress or anxiety as a result of COVID-19. So those are pretty high statistics. On a individual level, so things that I'm noticing in my practice is that COVID-19 really impacted the way that people were able to access coping mechanisms that they typically used in their daily lives. So if we think about it, gyms were closed. Exercise is so important to mental health. Gyms were closed, and also the way that we connected with people changed as well. So connection with others is huge for our mental health. Humans need connection. And so just the circumstances of COVID-19 really changed how people accessed their support systems and their methods of coping, which was pretty significant. In addition, there were a lot of life changes and circumstances that changed for people, typically going to school in person or working in person. With any transition, transition tends to not necessarily cause mental health concerns, but transition can exacerbate things that are already there. So if somebody was already kind of struggling, or maybe somebody was, maybe there were other issues that somebody was trying to work through, a transition can just be one more stressor that just kind of adds on to, like I said, things that may already be there. As far as how the pandemic has, circling back to the question, how it's affected students' mental health, I do want to say that the way that people receive services is really different. So now we're doing what's called telehealth, which is therapy over the phone or over platforms like Zoom. And so there's pros and cons to that. On the one hand, that can be really awesome because people can access services from wherever they are. They don't have to drive to go to their appointments. They don't have to look for parking. Even people who may not be able to access services as easy in person, services are more accessible. On the other hand, you're not in the same room with your therapist or counselor, so that's different too. So like I said, there's pros and cons to the fact that we are now doing telehealth.
Yeah, that is awesome information. And, you kind of touched on how, the mental health services are now changing. What are some of the resources that CAPS can offer Cal State Fullerton students?
Sure. Thank you for asking about that. So CAPS, which is Counseling and Psychological Services. We are here to provide mental health campus resources for students, and we have a variety of options available for students. One of the ways that we do provide this support is through mental health awareness and education. So definitely being able to spread the word about mental health and how it is a part of our vital health. It's a very important part of our overall health. Also, we provide You at Fullerton, which is this amazing online wellness platform that's available for students. Cal State Fullerton pays for that, for students to be able to access that resource. We also provide wellness workshops. The wellness workshops are workshops essentially that have psychoeducation, which is education around psychological issues, and they are intended to help students develop skills around various topics. There are 3 different wellness workshops that we have available: stress, mood, and thought, and those were intentionally created to meet the mental health needs of students. We noticed that students were coming in for those reasons in terms of, looking at how do I manage my mood, my thoughts, how do I manage stress? And so as a result, we created wellness workshops that are available for students via the tele option that Jessica mentioned. And so they're available via Zoom. And then we also have video recordings of the wellness workshops on our website as well. We have drop-in groups for students as well, and therapy groups for students too. So different options for students. Drop-in students can come to a few of the different drop-in groups or the therapy groups. Those are groups that have already started in the semester, the beginning of the semester. And so those are already closed to the students that are in the group, but we do have new therapy groups every semester. We also have 24-hour crisis support. So if a student is in crisis and they need support, they are welcome and encouraged to contact our office because we do have support for students. We also have short-term therapy for students, as well as psychiatric services and referrals to off-campus resources in the form of case management. So if a student is in need of more of long-term therapy, or perhaps if they are experiencing food insecurity, housing insecurity, and they need referrals to resources off campus, that we can be able to assist them with that process and in terms of resources and referrals.
That's some great information. Thanks for sharing that with us. Now, mental health stigma is something that a lot of students face, and misperceptions about mental health treatments can deter students from seeking the help they need. For example, there's this misconception that seeking therapy makes you look weak. What are your thoughts on this?
So my thoughts are, reaching out for help is actually not a sign of weakness, because it takes a lot of strength and courage to face your struggles. Mental health is something for everybody. We all have mental health. Everybody has thoughts, everybody has feelings, everybody has actions. And so reaching out for help with these things should not be a sign of weakness. Like I mentioned, it takes strength and courage to reach out for help. Sometimes it's often easier to avoid things or look away from things, shove things down, pretend it doesn't exist. And that's why I say that reaching out for help does take strength and bravery. So that's kind of my take on it. Mental health is just as important as physical health. And we don't treat physical health the same as we do as mental health as far as stigma goes. Somebody would never be considered weak for going to the emergency room and getting their broken arm x-rayed and getting, a cast for their broken arm. And so similarly for mental health, it's not expected that you would be able to work through everything on your own. And there's many things in our world and our society that are treated similarly. If we don't necessarily know how to fix something that's wrong with our car, we take it to the mechanic, and that's totally okay. There's no stigma necessarily with that. And so, mental health is the same as far as reaching out for help, is that we can't know as humans, we can't have all the answers for everything. And so sometimes we do need to ask for help. And sometimes help is just talking about things and getting a different perception, or just kind of having your thoughts and feelings be heard and valued is really important, especially when it comes to healing.
I love that. Thank you so much for that, Jessica. I have so many thoughts about that as well. Jacquelyn, you had mentioned that CAPS has these like workshops, these support therapy groups throughout the semester. And I did one at the beginning of COVID because I was like, I need more support. And so I did a shame resiliency workshop. If you guys have ever heard of Dr. Brene Brown, she has like amazing work on shame and shame resiliency. And a huge part of that was learning about like not being ashamed of needing help, or not being ashamed of not being okay. I feel like, especially in social media, you go and you see everybody's highlight reels. Everybody looks so happy and they're posting these pictures of themselves with their friends and everybody looks so happy. And then you compare that to your own life and you don't feel that way, especially in a pandemic. So I think when it comes to stigma, there's just so many layers there. Like, the social media adds one layer, expectations, shame, and then even culturally, right? Like there's a stigma, I think, all throughout the world when it comes to taking care of your mental health. But even like in my culture, for example, like the East Asian cultures, it's like that's not even something that's even talked about at all. So it's a very multifaceted issue, which is why I think like what you, Jessica and Jacquelyn, are doing to spread mental health education is so important. And speaking about stigma, so there's stigma about, seeking help through therapy, but then I personally feel like there's an even bigger stigma about taking medication for mental health issues. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on this.
Sure. So I can talk about that one too. So as far as taking medication, sometimes medication is used differently depending on obviously what the medication is and what the circumstance is. As a therapist, I may recommend that a person go seek consultation about seeking medication support for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's because therapy, a person would benefit from getting a little bit of a boost. For example, if somebody is so anxious that they're not able to practice some of the skills that I'm trying to work with them on in therapy, they may need medication to help regulate that. As far as medication goes, it sounds very mysterious, but it's really not if we think about how the mind and body are very much related. So as far as, the mind and body, work together. When we're talking about mental health, we're sometimes talking about physical health and vice versa. So we're seeing, for example, mental health can affect somebody's appetite, ability to sleep. Mental health concerns can affect experiences of physical pain and physical sensations. And so similarly to the question that was asked before, we easily go and get that addressed by a doctor, take some medication, but when it comes to mental health, sometimes there's some caution there, or hesitancy there. Additionally, I do want to say, so I mentioned that sometimes I may recommend that a client seek medication services to help therapy. Other times it's actually the primary course of treatment. So there are certain things that somebody may struggle with that we say medication first, then therapy. Like therapy is kind of the adjunct service or aid service to the medication. And other times it's vice versa. We do therapy first, and then sometimes we use medication to provide that boost, just to help that person get back on track. Some medications are prescribed to be taken temporarily. So it's just for symptom reduction, and other times those medications are needed for more daily functioning that somebody might take more long-term.
Mhm.
And just to add to that, thank you, Jessica. Just to add to that, I think that there could be concern and stigma that I've heard from a lot of students about, concerns about, and clients about the idea of taking medication because there's a worry about becoming addicted or becoming reliant. And so as Jessica was mentioning, there are times where it might be something that might be needed for a boost or for a period of time due to the symptoms that the client is experiencing, the student's experiencing in that during that period of time. So it's not necessarily something that will be ongoing. It really depends upon what the individual is experiencing, how the symptoms and how the symptoms are impacting their daily functioning, the quality of life that they're experiencing as well. So we definitely want to be mindful about that. And then just to add to that as well is I think a lot of this has to do with that mental health stigma. Unfortunately, if a person needs medication for diabetes, there's not really any thought about, okay, well, yeah, you need medication. That's very acceptable. But if an individual might need medication for anxiety or depression, there's different thoughts about that. And so I think part of what's so awesome about doing this podcast is to be able to spread this mental health awareness throughout the campus so students can know that it's okay if they're not feeling okay and that these are resources available to them. And if a student would like to explore more about medication management, medication options, they're welcome to contact our counseling department at 657-278-3040 to schedule a consultation to discuss medication management options. Or if a student perhaps is already taking medication for psychological reasons, and they wish to explore symptoms or need to consult with a psychiatrist, we have a psychiatrist and a psychiatric nurse practitioner on staff. So we do have students have that resource available to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just going to say, I've heard that analogy a bit before, and it always like sits well with me. You know, if someone was diabetic, you wouldn't like ridicule them for having to take insulin every day because their body just as is can't function the way that it should. And I think it's the same thing sometimes with these psychiatric medications. Like if there's a chemical imbalance or whatever it is, like just because we can't see it doesn't mean that it's, you know, not real or not there. And you know, looking at your guys' backgrounds at the U at Cal State Fullerton, it's funny, I actually worked with Jamie Sihon, I believe that she's the director of CAPS, on this project. So having you at Fullerton, and I was sort of there like co-piloting all of that. Tell the viewers more about that. What is you at Fullerton? How can students use it? All of that.
Sure, thank you for asking. As you can see with our beautiful backgrounds here, You at Fullerton is this really amazing resource that's available for students, and it's through your student portal. And it provides valuable information about really how to take care of ourselves. And it's available to staff and faculty as well as students. It's a tool that is designed for students, academics, mental health, as well as professional. It's looking at three components: succeeding, thriving, and mattering. And really looking at how we can manage our stress, set goals, promote happiness, well-being, and also be connected to campus resources. What's really awesome about you is that all of the articles and videos are vetted, they're reviewed by professionals that are thinking about students and really being mindful about the length of articles. So they're not like really long articles. We know students are busy people. And so the articles are short, the videos are short, and they're customized to the user's preferences. So as the student uses the tool, the platform, it will become more customized, personalized to the particular needs. And so really, yeah, online resource, all you have to do is go into your student portal and then type in u.fullerton.edu, and you can go in to get campus information as well as resources about mental health, about academics, about your professional life as well. It's sort of like Google, but for these different resources that I just mentioned, as well as campus resources.
Yeah, you at Fullerton is awesome. And it's all free for students, which is like, it just boggles my mind. All of the resources that it gives students and you don't have to pay a dime for it is just amazing to me.
right? Cal State Fullerton has paid for you all to access this resource.
So use it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So in addition to you, what are some other things that students can do at home to promote and help their mental health?
So something that I, really recommend is creating small habits that support your mental well-being. Simple things like trying to get adequate sleep, journaling, using deep breathing. When we think of self-care, I encourage you all to consider thinking about it as small habits, not necessarily these grandiose ideas of ways to kind of treat yourself, which those can be awesome too, but they don't have to be big acts. They can be small little things that you do to check in on yourself. So journaling is a great way to check in with yourself. How am I doing today? No, wait, how am I actually doing? What are some highs and lows of my day? If my body could talk, what would my body be saying right now? What are things that I have done well today that support my mental health? You can journal in the form of a gratitude list. You can journal in the form of writing a series of letters to yourself, to other people, to objects and things. There's a lot of ways that journaling can be used. It works really well to support that monkey brain, is what we call it sometimes, is when our brains just have chatter and we have the thoughts that are swirling. It's a good way to just get those thoughts out of our heads, out of our minds, and onto the paper. Often journaling helps us to think in a linear way instead of a circular way. Additionally, I encourage everybody to seek joy, rest, and gratitude. So especially for students, Jacquelyn mentioned earlier, y'all are busy and we know it. And so sometimes making sure to schedule in periods of joy, periods of rest, and periods of gratitude. Gratitude is really helpful for mental health because we often compare ourselves to others. I know that was something that you all commented on earlier. Comparing ourselves to others, thinking about what we don't have compared to what we do have. Sometimes just taking a second to think about those things can be really helpful and a shift of perspective. Always checking in with yourself and pausing, reflecting on how are you doing physically, emotionally, spiritually is just really helpful. So just checking in. And I know we've said this so many times today in our meeting, but it's okay to not be okay. Sometimes it's helpful to throw a pity party. I know that's one of my favorite things to do is, sometimes I just need to sit down and list all of the things that I'm tired of. And eventually I realize, okay, like I'm all out of things to be tired of. Now it's time for me to move on with my day. Sometimes it's just helpful it's almost like cathartic to just let go of the things that are bothering you. So whether that's writing it down in a journal, I'm so tired of this, and this, or even having a pity party with somebody that you feel close to. Hey, you want to sit down and have a pity party and talk about all the things that we're tired of? Let's let that go. And then we'll enjoy the rest of our conversation. Sometimes it's just helpful to sit with those uncomfortable feelings because trying to hold them back is almost more effort than just letting them out and letting them go. And then always ask for help. So you're not expected to have all the answers for everything. And so asking for help can look like a bunch of different stuff. It can be an internet search. It can be looking online at you at Fullerton. It can be contacting us at CAPS. It can be asking a friend. Asking for help can look like a lot, but basically knowing that you don't have to go through things alone is really important.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Jacquelyn.
Yeah, thank you. And just to add to that with what Jessica was mentioning regarding asking for help and really looking at that social connection piece. And with that, it just comes to mind all of this language that we've heard for the last year about social distancing and, the social distancing, that phrase. And so just being really mindful about about our self-talk, what we say inside as well as outside of our minds. Definitely being mindful about the different emotions we're experiencing, whether it be sadness, happiness, whatever that might be, and identifying those emotions without judgment. And if we do judge ourselves, noticing we're judging ourselves and trying to let that go. But with the social distancing, I do recommend that we be mindful about the terminology that we use, and instead of the social, instead say physical distancing, because the way that we speak in our minds as well as outside of our minds can really impact our mental health overall.
That is so true, because we can still, even if we are physically distancing, we can have a Zoom chat and be socially close with the people that we need to connect with. Also, talking about self-care, I really love what you said, Jessica, about it being like, it's the little habits. I almost feel like there's this idea that self-care is like, I'll just sit in a bubble bath and put on a face mask and like all my problems will go away. I wish it worked that way, but it doesn't. And I've learned like it is the little habits, right? So journaling, like I have a gratitude journal and it always just makes me feel better. But also, like, I used to go to the gym all the time and now obviously I can't. So I've actually loved following different fitness YouTubers online, and it's like this little online community and just working out around my neighborhood, and I'll like get to see just my neighborhood and my neighbors and wave at them, and coming into my backyard and then doing an at-home workout. It's different, but just because it's different doesn't make it bad. And I've learned I might almost like this better than going to the gym, and it helps me. Working out for me just doesn't help me physically. It's huge for me mentally, the endorphins and just feeling good. And I do have a question, like a follow-up question for both of you about, this idea of monitoring your thoughts, but also allowing yourself at the same time to feel what you're feeling. That's something that I have struggled with and have seen my peers struggle with. Like, how do you find the balance between giving yourself the time to express your feelings and to feel those negative feelings versus, it's an issue when you stay in that for a little bit too long. Do you know what I mean? And you get stuck there. So what are your thoughts about this?
So I think it's important for people to understand that feelings are not a bottomless pit, that feelings are almost kind of like waves of the ocean, that we get hit by a wave, but even though the waves crash, the water always recedes back. That if you feel sad, you're not going to feel sad forever. Eventually, at one point or another, it will lift. And that's the same for lots of other feelings too, is that feelings, emotions as a whole, it's very fluid. And I'm not saying that you go from deep sorrow to rainbows and sunshine. I'm just saying that eventually it does get better in some way. And so kind of trusting in that process. But if, I mentioned having a pity party, having that time where I'm sitting there and validating my own feelings, like, no, I need to sit in this mud. Also having a plan to shower off after. Also having a plan to sit in the mud and feel upset. But you know what? I'm going to sit in the mud and feel upset. And when I'm done sitting in this mud, I'm going to go do something else that feels better. So having a plan for, self-care after your, I guess it is a part of self-care to hear your own feelings and validate your own experience, but having a plan to do something that does bring you joy or bring you relaxation or bring you some sort of positivity is also helpful. Because like I said, oftentimes people fear that if they touch the negative feelings or if they touch those feelings that they're not going to go away. And that's just not true.
Right. Right. Just to add to that, yes, I think that's definitely a common fear for many different individuals when there's those heavy emotions that are coming up, fear to really feel those emotions because there's a fear that they may never go away. And so, typically emotions might last about like 60 to 90 seconds. And so I think that just kind of trusting that and knowing that, and then trying to identify where that might be coming from. And that can be difficult sometimes, but I think what can be helpful is to identify the emotion that we're experiencing, sadness, despair, shame, whatever that might be. Also identifying the physical sensation that might be coming up. So for me, when I have feelings of anxiety, I tend to have this kind of prickling sensation in my arm, and then identifying, well, what occurred that then brought up those feelings for me. And just acknowledging that and allowing myself to have that moment and that feeling, and identifying that it's okay to have those feelings. A lot of times when we don't acknowledge that and we try to shove that down, then the feeling could come up later in more explosive fashion. So using that, like the prevention piece, that proactive piece, to know that it's okay to have those emotions. Kind of like that movie Inside Out. I don't know if you've all seen that movie. I just love it so much because it shows about, the importance of having the variety of emotions that we experience. It's part of being a human being, to have all our different emotions. It's being human. So, right. But I think you bring up a good point. There is a lot of fear about getting stuck in those feelings. And that's where really, allowing ourselves to have those feelings without shame, because that can even amplify the feeling even more. And if we are having the shame, though, to acknowledge we are having it, and then, really trying to let that go.
Yeah, I think, feelings are meant to be felt. And, Jacquelyn, you mentioned that's a part of being human, right? It's important. And as far as that exploration of how am I feeling right now and where's this coming from a curious place instead of an analytical place is really kind of helpful. It's a helpful attitude to have. I'm just curious. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to, criticize. I'm just here to be curious about what is going on with me.
Yeah, I love that. Also, like Jacquelyn, you mentioned when you get anxious, you feel it, like the tingling sensations on your arms. I always think that's so interesting how it affects people physically, like so differently. For me, when I get anxious, I can feel it instantly in my chest, like it's hard to breathe. Everything is contracting. Or like I've talked to friends and they're like, when I can feel a depressive episode coming on, they've said they feel it in their shoulders. And I'm like, weird, I feel mine in my stomach. It's so interesting how the body and mind are so connected. And that will just always fascinate me, how that works.
Yeah, so kind of pivoting away from the self-care and more onto like support groups. So for people who prefer to talk with multiple people, can you tell us a little more about your support groups that go on throughout the year?
Sure. We actually have a brand new support group too that I'll mention as well. We have a variety of diverse groups that we provide to students. We have our wellness groups, we have our therapy groups, and our drop-in groups. Really the purpose of groups is for students to be able to connect with one another. And that can often be very therapeutic, developing a sense of community, developing a sense of getting socially connected. Social connections, we're social creatures. It's very helpful for our mental health. And with the groups, it's helpful to engage in a group because it typically is in regards to a shared topic or a common interest or an identity. So perhaps there could be identifying factors such as, ethnic background or disability identity or LGBTQ. And so a couple of different groups that we have. I mentioned the wellness workshops earlier. So we have our stress, mood, and thought workshops. And those really go into, for the stress, is identifying how stress impacts us and really to learn skills that can assist with coping and decreasing stress. And all the curriculum actually is available, and videos. There's videos for the wellness workshops. And I have to tell you, I've co-facilitated the workshops in the past, and I find I've done it a couple times, and every time I've co-facilitated, I find they're just so useful. They're really valuable. It's valuable information. Mood is really to look at how we can understand and accept our emotions and develop skills to increase positive emotional experiences. And thoughts is looking at how our thoughts impact our mood and behaviors, and to gain skills to challenge those negative thoughts, those self distortions, those thought distortions and beliefs. And then we have our drop-in groups, which we have a couple of those available this semester. We have the gift of now, which is looking at mindfulness meditation. A meditation is a very useful self-care tool. And for many individuals, it is useful, but it can be difficult because it's hard to shut off the mind, which is really meditation. We're trying to slow down the mind and really get into the present moment. And that can be difficult to do. So to be able to engage in this kind of group, this kind of activity in a group can be very useful because it provides that structure and that guidance. I myself have gone through some meditation groups in the past and have found it to be very, very useful for myself. There's also Project Self, which is really looking at students in regards to a workshop series on food, mood, and body image, which can be a big topic of concern for many students. It's looking at self-compassion, which is a really very valuable ingredient with having and maintaining mental health. It's looking at emotional regulation, as well as listening and relationship with food. So a couple of different items that particular group is looking at. We also have a graduate student support group. So these are all drop-in groups that I mentioned. So what that means is that students can show up to any of these groups that are available for students. The mindfulness meditation, I'm going to go back, sorry about that. So those are Mondays, 11 to 11:50. All this is available on our Instagram, as well as which is CSUF CAPS, as well as our website, fullerton.edu/CAPS. The Project Self that I just mentioned regarding self-compassion, emotional regulation, and relationship with food is on Tuesdays, 3 to 4:30. We also have the graduate support group, and that's on Wednesdays, 1 to 1:50. So that's available for students. We also have a drop-in group called While Black Drop-in Group, which is available Wednesdays from 1 to 2 p.m. So available for our students to discuss how social injustices have affected their emotional well-being. And then we have Coping with CAPS, which it's a collaboration with our Latinx Community Resource Center. And it offers a space for our students that are connected to the Latinx Community Resource Center or our allies. And that's Wednesdays, 1 to 1:50. And then we have an Empower Her Women Supporting Women, which is a female support group. And that's Wednesdays, 2:30 to 4. And then we just have a brand new group that I wanted to make sure to mention specifically here. And this is a very timely group that we really want to make sure that students are aware of and encourage students to come and get connected. Again, this is all available on our website. And this is called Collective Healing Space for APIDA students. So it's on Mondays, 4 to 5. And it's a safe space, safe and private space for Asian Pacific Islander, DESI American identified students to feel affirmed, seen, and supported. And it's a group for students to share common concerns and get support from one another. So very timely group that I'm excited, just fresh, that just came out recently in response to students. And then we also have some therapy groups. Those have already started, and students are welcome to check those out on our website because, again, they change every semester. The difference between the drop-in groups, the drop-in students can go to any of those groups anytime, whereas the therapy groups, those would be where students would need to connect with the counselor earlier in the semester to be able to meet with the counselor to determine that the group is the right fit for what they're looking for. And let's say that 10 students or 8 students or 5 students sign up for the group, and they meet with the counselor and they're identified to be the right fit for that group, then only those 5 or 8 or so students would be in that group, the therapy group, for that semester, whereas the drop-in groups, any student can go at any time. And so again, these groups are really awesome because they help students feel connected, and social connections are very impactful for our mental health.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to check out the meditation workshop because I started doing meditation to help me go to sleep at night. And the first couple of times that I did it, I was like, man, this is really hard because I just couldn't get my mind to turn off. But it took me a couple times to do it to like really listen to what it was telling me to do. And after that, it really helped me. Like I was able to go to sleep. My mind just didn't want to stop talking. So yeah, I definitely want to check that one out.
Yes, I highly recommend that you do check that out. And also, speaking of sleep, In the past, we've had a sleep wellness workshop. We don't have it this semester, but perhaps we will in the future. And all the curriculum is available on our website, and it is amazing. So if you're having a hard time falling asleep or staying asleep, I highly recommend checking out the curriculum and the video because there's some really valuable tips.
That's great. Yeah, you guys have been talking about some really great resources for us to look into.
Right? It's like we might as well just take advantage of all of it. And you guys, do you also do art therapy workshops and then puppy workshops? I feel like, or puppy, not workshops, puppy therapy, like animal therapy. I feel like I've seen you guys do that too.
Yeah, so so I think something that is important is to kind of note that it's not necessarily art therapy, but it is art-based like wellness workshops. And I know it sounds like I'm saying the exact same thing, but there is a difference. The way that art-based workshops are, I guess the way that our workshops are based is similarly to the sleep workshops. We used to have live workshops, but this semester we do not. We have all of our curriculum similarly posted online for students to check out. Art is meant to increase self-expression and relaxation. So sometimes a therapist might use art even within session to just to help that person feel more comfortable. It's different from art therapy, where art therapy is provided typically by somebody who has it's more specialized treatment, and it's a specialty as well. So it's typically a certified art therapist who provides that term. Art therapy is what we would use for what they do. And so instead of talking being the therapy, the actual creation of art is the medium of how that person expresses themselves in treatment. And I know all of that sounded so similar to, it's all, it all seems, what's the difference? But I just wanted to kind of let you all know that there's a little bit of a difference between what we're posting for our art wellness groups compared to what the specialty therapy is, which is art therapy.
That is so cool. I never even knew the difference, but I never even knew that like art therapy was actually a thing. That's awesome. And you guys also partner with Titan Wellness, correct? To do, I think it was like every Wednesday you guys used to do dog therapy when we were still on campus.
Yeah, so that was something that we are partnered with Titan Well, and we have done events and workshops similarly to what you mentioned. Animals can be really helpful for relaxation. Their fur is also, obviously it's got like a different texture to it, so it meets our sensory needs. So for, Jacquelyn earlier was saying when she feels anxious, she has like tingling sensations going up and down her arms. Sometimes when we are under stress, sensory things can be really helpful, and that's why animals can be helpful, as their fur feels really good to touch and feel. Also, they're a source of joy. So remember earlier how I was talking about making sure to give yourself joy. Animals often provide that, especially certain types of animals provide that kind of unconditional source of positive energy for people. Not everybody, but for certain people, it does elicit joy for them.
Yeah, I definitely get what you're saying about the animals. I have a dog who, if ever I'm in in a mood that it's just I can't get out of it, if I go and pet her, it's light and day. Well, to wrap up our conversation, we wanted to talk a little bit more about mental health stigma and some of the things people can do to reduce the stigmatization around the issue. So how would you like to rework the stigma surrounding mental health? And how can we destigmatize the topic, and what steps can we take?
Thank you. This is a fabulous, fabulous question. Thank you for asking. So there's so much work that we can do to destigmatize mental health, and we appreciate the opportunity to be involved in this platform to be able to further support this endeavor. And so with that, I think one of the first strategies, one of the first resources, one of the first tools we can use is to start talking about mental health. So really looking at, the needs, the challenges, the triumphs. The more we talk about mental health, the more we can normalize the topic and really help break the mental health stigma. Also, we want to be mindful about being proactive with our mental health and making it a routine to take care of ourselves and to know that, self-care is a necessity, not a luxury. So I think that societally, culturally, that sometimes we, as Americans, we work a lot and we work hard, and that's really valued, right? Our work. And that can really impact our sense of self-worth. But we really want to be mindful about making mental health and our self-care habits as part of our daily routine. And really looking at how we can be proactive versus reactive. And part of that is dedicating this time to different forms of self-care, which could be, taking a bubble bath in the tub, as you were mentioning. And it could also be throwing, a pity party as well. So knowing that both are okay. And then also embracing mental health as part of our general health, that it's just as important as physical health. That's something that is very important to us, and really being able to help advocate for that. Mental health is as important as physical health. Also educating ourselves about mental health. And that can really help normalize some of these challenges and making it a part of our overall health. And part of what we can do to help educate ourselves and keep up to date with mental health is to follow our Instagram at CAPS, which is CSUF CAPS, because we do post, and we will continue to post mental health resources as well as campus resources, and provide the campus with further information about mental health. There's also NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Illnesses, which is a great resource to also be able to get more educated, and has done a really good job of trying to help break that stigma of mental health. As well as checking out You at Fullerton that we mentioned earlier, because this is an excellent way to stay up to date with relevant mental health topics, along with the academic and the professional endeavors that we mentioned earlier. Also, as part of this, I think to really identify our feelings about mental health and be raw with ourselves, be transparent, be authentic with ourselves. Those feelings come up from many different sources, many different societal thoughts, familial, cultural, all those different sources. So really identify what that looks like for us, and be able to have conversations about that, to be able to educate ourselves further. And also check out our website, fullerton.edu/CAPS. So that way you can also be up to date with all of the awesome resources that were just shared during this podcast.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing those resources at the end. That'll be perfect for people who want to look up what these resources that you've been talking about. So I just want to give you guys a big thank you for joining us this week and to discuss this important issue.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone that is tuned in. We're going to go ahead and we'll put all of the links that you guys just talked about. We'll put them in the description box for you guys to just easily click and go check out. Also, be sure to check out HSAC's YouTube page to catch up on our previous podcasts, and make sure to follow at hsac.csuf on Instagram and at CSUF Honors on Twitter for updates. This is Asha
and Alexis.
And we will see you guys next time.